Alrighty, thank you guys for your patience. We'll get going now. Thank you all for joining MessageGears and AnalyticsIQ on today's webinar, Customer Data Maturity, Moving Beyond Demographic Data to Behaviors and Predictors. And I'm Walter Rowland, SVP Growth with MessageGears, and I'm pleased to see so many of you all joining us today. It's an exciting topic. As many of you know, at MessageGears, we are very passionate about working with brands to enable them to do more with and to fully leverage their customer data in order to deliver exceptional experiences to their customers, donors, members, and fans. And that is why I'm especially excited to have our great partner today, AnalyticsIQ, joining us to lay out a roadmap to achieve customer data maturity, and also to share some pretty cool special sauce that they have in the areas of predictive analytics and also cognitive psychology. And this will enable you as a marketer to move beyond demographic data for your millions of customers. But first, let's set the stage a little bit by describing the current state for many marketers. Our first slide, which you'll now see on your screen, describes how 90% of enterprise marketers that span across all of the various business to consumer verticals do feel that they currently rely on data to provide personalized experiences for their tens of millions of customers. We at MessageGears see this in our own survey data, and organizations like Forrester and Salesforce see similar things in their own survey data. But unfortunately, as you will see in the next slide, on the consumer side of the coin, our survey data shows that more than half of consumers themselves feel like that their data-driven experiences with brands are just not living up to the expectations from the brand. So there's a disconnect. The consumers don't feel like they're getting the data-driven experiences that they deserve and expect, especially when, and I like to say this quite a bit in my interactions with brands, there's almost an implied contract between the consumer and the brand that says, hey, I've opted into your email, I've opted into your loyalty program, I have your app on my phone, I know you're tracking my data. I expect you to use that data to surprise and delight me. Consumers feel like many brands are not holding up to their end of that implied contract. Also, to make it even more difficult, as Brendan Witcher likes to say at Forrester, he likes to remind us that every time a consumer is exposed to an improved or exceptional customer experience from a digital perspective, then the consumer expectation is reset to a new higher level for all brands that they interact with. So if you have a great experience with Home Depot, then you expect that similar exceptional experience from Ace Hardware, and if you're not getting it, then you are disappointed. That is the new world order. So what's going on? Why is there this disconnect? Based on our collective experience, we have found with many interactions with brands that there's a significant amount of struggle to extract insight that's needed to maximize results and to maximize those exceptional experiences from the consumer information that the brands have within their organization. This is why I'm so excited to introduce Scarlett Shipp, Chief Product Officer at AnalyticsIQ. Unified customer data sources like those created by AnalyticsIQ allow marketers to test, learn, and grow their way to customer data maturity. Scarlett is going to lead us through a framework for achieving customer data maturity to enable marketers, as AnalyticsIQ likes to say, to know their customers like they know their friends. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Scarlett.
Thank you, Walter. I appreciate that. And kind of to expand on that today, we are going to talk about how we create data-driven, personalized messaging by looking at different dimensions of the consumer so that we can create an exceptional consumer experience. We're going to look at who they are, who the consumer is, what they do, when they're in the market, and why they make the decisions they do. Before we get started with this, I want to talk a little bit about our data and how we build our data out to give you a concept of what we're working with. So at AnalyticsIQ, we start with publicly available data. It is the entire US. It is our foundation to our data set. From there, we leverage, as Walter, you mentioned, cognitive psychology and data science. And then we build out our file with about 1,500 predictive variables. These are all of our data products that we work with. Now, today, what we're going to do is break this out into different dimensions and layering of data. When we work with our customers, we start by integrating our third-party data with their very valuable first-party data. And then this allows us first to help them understand who are their customers. So they may have some gaps in their data where they don't have some demographic information. We can overlay this and make sure they have full demographic information, marital status, gender, number of children, job, etc. Next, as a building block, as we lay out the dimensions of the data and overlay them, we'll help them look at and understand what their customers do. So their behaviors and their interests. Are they video gamers? Are they exercisers? Are they food lovers, etc.? The third level of data that we're going to discuss and go into will be what are the motivations of their consumers, of their customers, and their behaviors when they are in the market. With that said, we're going to break this down into each of those categories and discuss them individually. First, let's start with the demographic information, and this is about who customers are. In this example, we're going to use an insurance company, and the statistics you see on the screen are basically the US population that we have in our AnalyticsIQ database. And you can see the definitions of presence of children and marital status and the percent of the population that owns a dog. Well, this particular insurance company, they wanted to offer pet insurance to their insurance customers. So what we could do is overlay this information and say, okay, of our dog owners, what is the profile of this consumer? And we found mainly this was single and divorced females with no children. From there, we looked at the data deeper and we said, okay, this is basically an affluent profile. They have disposable income and they absolutely love their pet. So it's the person that likes to post pictures of their pet on Instagram, etc. And that is the population we need to target and message appropriately. Now, this is all by just overlaying some demographic information to understand who your customers are. Now, if we take this to the next level and we say, okay, we know who our customers are, what else do we need to know about them? We need to know what their behavior and interests are. So as we go through this presentation and layer on each dimension and understanding about a consumer, it allows us to make better offers and match that with the customer and better messaging to them by leveraging the data and understanding about them. In this particular situation or example, this is a travel company. So it is a hotel group with resorts and hotels, both in the US and internationally. And when we look at this, you can see a few examples that we put up here of food tourists, golf enthusiasts, avid exercisers. We have many more travel types like luxury, family entertainment, empty nesters. But for this example, I just chose these three. And if we want to layer on top of who we know our customers are and then what their interests are, because this travel company wants to match the right location and travel experience for their customers, if we just look at avid exercisers, we can see where do they like to travel. Is it domestic, international? Are they cruisers? Do they like to go on cruise ships? And we know that we need to link them with travel experience that includes excursions, hiking, biking, etc. From there, we need to look at their discretionary spend. And we can do that by what they spend their income, discretionary income on. So, for example, we can see if they look at discretionary income spent on travel, and then we can match the experience based on their income, where they like to travel, and what they like to do. And so that allows us to create even more refined messaging to the consumer. Now that we've looked at who they are, what their interests and behaviors are, we want to layer in the next level of data. And that really comes to when they're in the market and why are they buying and what motivates them to buy. So this is where we delve deeper into the cognitive psychology. And with cognitive psychology, we can predict tendencies or emotional triggers, meaning what motivates the consumer, what motivates them to make a buying decision. You know, are they a laggard behind in technology? Are they an innovator? Are they a value seeker? As you can see on this particular slide, I focus on spontaneous shoppers and conscientious spenders. Now, I will get to when people are in the market on the next slide, but on this particular one, we want to look at spontaneous shoppers. What we know about this type of person is you need to give them an offer with a discount and a short turnaround window, and they get immediate gratification for this. But if you were to give that same type of offer to conscientious spenders, you would not have success, because these are customers that tend to be very loyal to you, but they also need to take time to make decisions. They want to look at customer reviews, money back guarantees, the quality of what they're buying. So we would message them completely different and make them that type of offer. Now, with the blend of cognitive psychology and data science, in creating these buying profiles, it is all based on our research and years of experience to get the science of this down. And just a little background real quick on cognitive psychology. It is the scientific study of mental processes. And when we say mental processes, we mean more like a person's attention, their memory, their perception, their thinking. There's other things it focuses on, but we really leverage these aspects of cognitive psychology in trying to get behind a person's psyche to understand what will motivate them to make a decision. Now that we've talked about who they are, what their interests are, why they're motivated, and when they're in the market, we can see we have a large consumer profile. And here we pulled a few elements together to look at where, you can see this is a highly educated woman that is married with one child and a dog. She's a spontaneous value seeker and a cruise traveler. Now, notice she's in the market for an auto. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because once we started using cognitive psychology to look at people's motivational factors, we wanted to go a little deeper. So right now, if we take this particular scenario where she's in the market for an auto, we can look at things like what she has now, what she's in the market for. So maybe now she has a minivan or an SUV. Maybe she's in the market for a BMW or Mercedes or Toyota. Maybe it's an SUV. We can identify these things. And we can also look at, does she buy back-end products? Does she maintenance at the dealership? So we can get an understanding of who she is, right, and what her behaviors are. But then we delve deeper into the auto buying psychology, because buying an automobile is an emotional experience, and it is an emotional decision-making process. As a result, we created auto buying profiles, whether we have an anxious buyer, safety buyer, smooth operator, budget buyer, etc. And we can target the messaging and communication with her to help make her more comfortable in her decision-making process. Now that I've gone through all the different types of data and layering to create the more refined message to the consumer, we wanted to share a case study. So in this particular case study, this is a hotel and vacation resort club that has vacation investment properties. And this particular organization came to us and they said they had 3 goals in mind they wanted us to work with them on. One of them was to line up the offers that connected with the different types of consumers they had as customers and travelers. The other was to optimize their spend, their marketing spend and placement. And the third was hone the messaging and creative that was being sent to these consumers and their customers. So the process we went through to do this was, first we had the travel company send us their existing customers. From there, they appended whether their customer was a luxury traveler or an economy property traveler. And we just took that information and we merged it with our data and filled out any gaps they had in the demographic information. And we wanted to drill down in their lifestyle patterns, as well as their spending behaviors and how they prefer to be communicated with in order to kind of meet the goals of the travel company. And what we did is we have a segmentation product. It's basically 10 overarching groups with 90 subsegments underneath, which groups homogeneous populations together. So we overlaid it on their customers to identify which segments of the population behaved in what way so we could figure out how to line up an offering. I'm not going to focus on everything. That would take a long time, but I'm choosing 2 segments and kind of telling you exactly the profile of the segment and what we did within that segment. One was what we call successful and steady. These are going to be high-income families. They're very brand loyal and they're fiscally responsible. In this profile of consumer likes to spend time with their family, but more hanging out at pools and just being outside. And they were 12.3 times more likely to own luxury property. We knew their income was on average about $310,000. With this information, it helped us to kind of build a marketing profile. And so the travel company decided to increase their marketing spend in this specific segment. We offered higher end travel products and properties, and because we knew they basically would be more interested in that, and we communicated with them. They preferred that via email, and the messaging was more about being upwardly mobile. Now that was one segment. Another segment that I wanted to talk to you about and what we did was the Grady family. So as you can imagine, it's an all-American family, and it's going to be larger. It's on average 3.5 people. They're very family oriented. They want their children to have a great life. They want to we see them spending above average on things like travel, dining out, apparel, and they are very present on Facebook. They want to share their experiences. Now they are 2.4 times more likely to have luxury properties, but overall their income is lower than the other group. So what we did here was we did increase marketing spend in this group, as well as targeted a lower end travel product and properties that were very family oriented via direct mail and Facebook. And we did a lot about messaging around family fun. The result of this particular project, we reduced the marketing waste by 12%, which was part of the goal here, increased the response rate by about 19%, targeted into these segments, so across all of the segments that we targeted. With that said, I was going to go into how we execute and deploy our projects with our customers and help them to truly personalize the communication. First, what we do is we receive the data from our customers, and then we augment it with our data and merge it and layer it together. Once we do this, we analyze the data. And this can be done in several different ways. We'll look at segmentation, we can look at doing custom models, and we can also create some custom psychological products as well for our customers, which we've done both. Now, our goal here is really to understand lifestyle patterns, right? So who is the consumer? What are their interests and behaviors? And then their spending behaviors. When are they in the market and what are they shopping for? And how to communicate with them. Plus, when you communicate with them, what should the messaging be to get them to activate or respond? With this, we then work with our friends at MessageGear, and MessageGear will help you pull everything together and provide the platform for execution and deployment. Once this is done, we definitely want to revise, refine, and take our learnings and re-execute. With that said, Walter, I'm going to hand this over to you so that you can discuss with everyone your platform and how to execute.
Awesome, thank you. That was really great. So just to reinforce what Scarlett was describing there, for our joint customers, this diagram is a visual that depicts how all the pieces come together. And for the brands that we work with, step number one is that their own internal customer data is sitting typically in what we think of as a modern data warehouse platform that is actually controlled by the brand themselves. It's not part of the MessageGear's platform, and it's not part of AnalyticsIQ. So the brand has their own internal customer data sitting, let's say, in a Snowflake environment. And then Scarlett, as you heard her described just a minute ago, there's a process in place to share that data back and forth between the brand's own internal Snowflake customer data warehouse and AnalyticsIQ as part of a regular ongoing process to augment and enhance that data to enable it to be much more sophisticated from a segmentation and behavioral and predictive perspective. And then the MessageGear's platform enables sophisticated marketers to do very advanced segmentation, cross-channel messaging and personalization, and also to expose that customer data from a contextual perspective at massive scale to really any endpoint, including, let's say, a movable link, which is a common one for us. So wanted to show you guys this visual just to depict what kind of all the pieces look like when they get brought together. And I do think we now have about 5 minutes or so for questions. Many of them, actually all of them, Scarlett, are for you. So I know one that came in kind of early, and I think it's a pretty good one. Is what's the special sauce? Like, what's under the covers for AnalyticsIQ? How do you guys do what you do in terms of the predictive components of your consumer data?
Thank you, Walter. So what we do, as I was saying, we start with all publicly available data. And then we engage a product development process where we have surveys that are developed that we build our products using, but we still use our publicly available data. And what we do is build our products out, and then we validate them before we publish them to our file. And our product roadmap is constantly evolving, and the way we approach product development and build these out is really on high-level categories, and then we delve deeply into them.
Got it. Next one is kind of a combined question. Maybe I'll take a stab and you can keep me honest if I missed anything. But why is enriched data and a customer marketing platform combined together? So I guess they're basically asking, why is AnalyticsIQ plus a MessageGear's, hypothetically, what does that do for the brand? What's the business impact? And I think, to me, that really goes back to where we started at the beginning of this webinar, that notion of marketers wanting to do more, but consumers not feeling it from a personalization perspective, and that implied contract between the consumer and the brand. So, to me, from a MessageGear's perspective, the combination of our platform, customer data sitting in the brand's own kind of highly elastic modern data infrastructure, and an AnalyticsIQ process to kind of enhance that data and enrich it to enable the brand to be even more personalized and sophisticated, to surprise and delight the consumer. I mean, that's really what it's all about, and that leads to higher loyalty, higher retention, higher share of wallet, you name it. What's your perspective on that, Scarlett? I know I threw a lot in there.
No, 100% agree. I mean, basically, by adding in our data, it gives you a very broad understanding and deep understanding of the consumer that you're working with their preferences, as well as other information about them, because we're industry agnostic, right? So our data can focus in a lot of different directions, and then we try to give you an entire profile that then you at Message Gears and the brands can work with to truly target and communicate directly with that consumer in a very refined way, which is exactly what you just said.
Cool. All righty. Next one is really for you guys, and it's probing on the cognitive psychology aspects of AnalyticsIQ, which I think is a great question, one I love to see, because it really, when I first met you guys, a year or so ago, this really stood out to be a big differentiator for you all. So love to understand more about that.
So with the cognitive psychology, it is really the intangible data, right? So it's the information on a consumer about how their psyche works when they're making a purchase, which we found, and we've done years of research. So our cognitive psychology department has done years of research and to get an understanding of how to get to this information, because we don't really go around and think, oh, what makes us buy, or what kind of person am I, things of that nature, and to really understand that about a person. And so once we developed this, we thought it was a very powerful way to communicate in a way that a consumer could absorb and understand and help them to make a buying decision.
Got it. Very cool stuff, and a lot of that's driven by your statistical surveys and all your sort of big data and AI work.
Right.
So well, cool. The next
yes,
one is,
absolutely.
Go ahead, Scarlett.
No, absolutely. So we actually blend the psychology with the data science and the analytics to create the outcomes that we have for our products. So yeah, all big data, all developed to be implemented across the entire U.S.
All right. I think we have time for one more. What if I want a custom predictive model that's specific to my consumers and my business? Can you guys? This is again for you guys more than us. Can AnalyticsIQ help with sort of custom predictive models?
Absolutely. We do it all the time for our customers. So we can work with them on a custom predictive model. And basically, we like to sit down with our customers and say, okay, what is your goal? What's your end game? So start with the end and then reverse back the methodology and approach on how to do that. And it would be custom modeling for sure, integrated with our data and their first party data, if possible. And then if we need to integrate any kind of cognitive psychology to get a deeper understanding and capture some of that intangible data on a consumer, we can do that also.
Awesome. Very cool stuff. All right. Well, Scarlett, you gave me a lot to think about today. I want to thank you for your time and your preparation, and I want to thank our audience. I know the recording of this will be available. We'll probably type up a transcript summary type thing as well, and obviously, we look forward to any questions anyone may have about either Message Gears or AnalyticsIQ as a follow-up. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. Thank you.